Hi, in this presentation we are going to talk about an important feature of RSIGuard called AutoClick. First, I'll give a brief description of the problem we're trying to solve with AutoClick. Then I'll explain how AutoClick can help you solve the problem. Finally, we'll spend some time demonstrating how to use AutoClick effectively, first looking at the basics, and then looking at some of the more advanced features. And of course, we'll finish with a quick review of what we've covered. These days, we frequently hear the phrase, "So simple, it's just a mouse click away." But if you're one of the many people who suffer from pain from using a mouse, this cliché seems quite inappropriate. For many people, using a mouse causes them discomfort to the degree that it affects their ability to use a computer. Whether or not you presently experience pain, mousing is, oddly enough, a potentially risky activity. How can that be? Let's start by looking at some typical pointing devices. All pointing devices share certain things in common. Each one lets you use your body to indicate where you wish to point, and then lets you use your body to somehow indicate that you wish to click. The most common device, the mouse, lets you move the pointer with your hand and arm, and lets you click by pressing a button with a finger. Trackballs are similar, but the pointing happens more with your hand and fingers than with your arm. Touchpads let you do the pointing with subtle arm and finger motions, while clicking may happen by pressing a button or performing a gesture with your finger. Some pointing devices are variations of these devices, but allow you to hold your hand, fingers, and arm in a different posture. Some devices even let you control the mouse with your eyes, head, and feet, and clicking might come from a foot tap or even a puff of air from your mouth. But they all share a basic pattern. First, you do something to point, and then you do something to click. Because clicking is so frequent, we tend to hold a static posture, preparing for the next click. Then we perform some repetitive action to click the mouse, sometimes thousands of times a day. The combination of static, sometimes awkward postures, repetition, and long exposure times can potentially lead to significant discomfort. Often, people will try switching pointing devices, or switching from their injured to their other hand. The problem with this technique is that the repetitive action is simply moved to a new location. Although it may alleviate symptoms for a period, it often leads to a spreading injury that affects both hands or several fingers. Now let's look at what AutoClick does. AutoClick is a software tool that eliminates the need to click your mouse or other pointing device. It does not replace your current mouse. It will work with any pointing device you presently use. Whereas normally with a mouse, you move, then click, then move, then click, and so forth, with AutoClick, you move the mouse and pause. Then AutoClick will click for you. You move and pause, and after each pause, AutoClick clicks for you. Because AutoClick clicks for you, you no longer need to click the mouse. You also no longer need to grasp the mouse, and you no longer need to keep your hand in the static, ready-to-click posture. Instead, you can comfortably hold the mouse in one of various more relaxed postures, because the mouse becomes a pointing device only, and you don't need to physically click it because AutoClick does that for you. Watch as this user performs word processing tasks like making text bold and copying and pasting. Notice how the mousing hand is relaxed on the mouse. Notice how he does not need to hold a finger over the mousing button and does not need to click the mouse. When he moves the mouse to a new position, AutoClick clicks for him. At first that might seem odd. What if you don't want the mouse to click where you moved the mouse? Well, normally you only move the mouse somewhere when you want it to click, so it's not normally an issue. When you first start using AutoClick, you will occasionally move the mouse only to realize at the last moment that you don't want to click there. Just move the mouse somewhere neutral away from buttons, and the mouse click will be ignored. In time, however, you will learn a new pattern of working, and extra clicks will become very rare. Thousands of users are testimony that AutoClick is easy to use if you give it a chance. Here's another tip for getting started. Some people use the mouse to point at whatever they're looking at. They constantly move the mouse to wherever they are looking on the screen. This pattern isn't good for them because they're doing a lot of extra unnecessary mouse work. But it also doesn't work if you're using AutoClick because the constant unnecessary mouse movement would trigger unwanted autoclicks. If you have this behavior, AutoClick can help you unlearn it. It will take you a little longer to get used to AutoClick, but the benefit will be even greater. Okay, the basic idea of AutoClick is you move the mouse over what you want to click on, and instead of clicking, you pause. AutoClick clicks for you. How long do you have to pause before AutoClick clicks? Well, you can change the AutoClick delay in the AutoClick settings window. To view that, click on the Setup menu of RSIGuard and click Settings. You can set the time to match your personal preference. AutoClick starts by waiting 0.8 of a second before it triggers a click. As you get used to AutoClick, you may want to lower the trigger time so that you can work faster. If you have trouble with AutoClick clicking too fast, or if you have a hard time controlling the mouse pointer, you may wish to increase the trigger time to, say, 12 or higher to make AutoClick easier to use. Now that we know how to do a single click, you might be wondering how you can do double clicks, right clicks, and drag and drop operations. The most common method is to use RSIGuard's key control feature and assign those functions to hotkeys. If you don't use the numeric keypad for other purposes, it makes a great place to create hotkeys for mouse functions. You can use the 1, 2, and 3 keys for single, double, and if you use it, triple click. Okay, here's a little aside. Why would you want a single click hotkey? 2 reasons. The first is, sometimes you want to click right where the mouse is pointing. You could move the mouse and bring it back to the same place, but it's easier to tap the single click hotkey. The second reason is that AutoClick has intelligence in that it knows many situations in which a click would not be appropriate. If you get into one of those situations and AutoClick just doesn't think it should click, even when you want it to, you can press the single click hotkey, which is still usually easier on the body than pressing the mouse button. The 0 key on the numeric keypad makes an appropriate skip next click hotkey. When you press this hotkey, moving the mouse will not trigger an AutoClick until the next time you manually click the mouse. This is useful if you need to move the mouse around for some unique situation where you don't want clicks. The decimal point on the numeric keypad makes a good hotkey for right click. Pressing this key will trigger a right click. Probably the most important of the mouse-related hotkeys is the drag lock hotkey, which is often placed on the numeric keypad's addition symbol key, although some people prefer to place it on the tilde key, which is just to the left of the 1 key, because then it's easy to use with your left hand. The drag lock hotkey lets you do drag and drop operations and selection operations. You tap the hotkey once to start the drag and drop. Next, you move the mouse to the end of the drag. And because you don't need to actually hold down the mouse button, you can relax as you move the mouse and take your time. When you're at the right spot, let go of the mouse and tap the hotkey a second time to finish. Drag and drop mouse selections are the most straining activities you can do on a computer, so this hotkey makes a huge difference in reducing your strain. Together with the basic operation of AutoClick, a large percentage of your mousing strain can be eliminated, not just moved to another finger or hand, but eliminated. There's a lot more to AutoClick, and one of the best ways to understand all of the advanced features is to look through the AutoClick settings screen. That's where we adjusted how long AutoClick waited to do its click. Here you can control the trigger distance. That's how many dots, which are also called pixels, that the mouse needs to move before AutoClick will trigger another automatic click. If your mouse sometimes wiggles on its own, and therefore causes AutoClick to click, you may want to increase this number. Also, if when you let go of your mouse, the cord moves it a little bit, increasing this number can help prevent unwanted clicks. Cordless mice and trackballs are another great way to avoid that problem. It can be nice to have feedback as to when AutoClick is clicking and when you are doing a drag and drop operation using hotkeys. If you enable audio clicks when AutoClick clicks, you will get this audio feedback. If you're left-handed, check the left-handed mouse configuration. This will set AutoClick and Microsoft Windows to be in left-handed mouse mode. If you click on Edit AutoClick Filters, you can create rules that tell AutoClick to behave differently in certain situations. You can define rules to not click in certain programs or on certain buttons, or to tell AutoClick to do double clicks in certain windows. You start with two default rules. The second one, displayed here, tells AutoClick not to click on buttons named Delete unless the user does so via one of the hotkeys you set up in the key control feature. Additionally, in rare situations, the special AutoClick filters can be used to prevent AutoClick from clicking on certain standard Windows buttons like Close, Maximize, or Menu items. If you click on the Advanced Settings button, you'll see a few more subtle controls for AutoClick. Although most users will never need to adjust these settings, advanced users may wish to explore the options they have available here. Although a lot of attention is wisely focused at the ergonomics of keyboard use, for many people, possibly a majority, the mouse is an even greater culprit. Static postures and the rapid, repetitive fine motor motions associated with clicking a mouse can cause discomfort over time. AutoClick can dramatically reduce the strain associated with clicking a mouse, and many people tell us that they simply cannot work without AutoClick. It does take a little getting used to, but the small investment of time is well worth it. We hope you'll try AutoClick and let us know how we can improve it. For further information, please consult the online documentation for AutoClick, which you can access by clicking on the Help menu and selecting the RSIGuard Help option. If you have any comments about this tutorial, please contact us at the following email address or phone number. Oh, and by the way, this entire video and audio production was composed using AutoClick. Thank you for watching.